You've sent out 100 applications, maybe 200. You've tailored your CV, written cover letters at midnight, practiced your interview answers in the mirror, and the silence keeps coming back louder than any rejection email ever could. So let me ask you something. What if it's not your CV? What if it's not even you? In this video, I'm going to break down exactly why so many people in the UK can't land a job right now in 2026, the real reasons behind the rejections nobody explains to you, and what you can actually do to fix the parts that are genuinely in your control. Some of this is going to surprise you because the story you've been told about why you're failing is not the full picture. Let's get into it. Let's start with the thing nobody wants to hear, but everybody needs to. The UK job market in 2026 is genuinely harder than it was just a few years ago, and that is not a personal failing on your part. That is simply where the numbers sit right now. According to recent labor market data, job postings have declined noticeably from their post-pandemic peaks, while the number of people actively applying has stayed high or even increased. That means for almost every role you apply to, you are not competing against 5 or 10 people anymore. You are competing against 30, 50, sometimes hundreds. Nearly 3/4 of UK firms reported hiring difficulties in the first quarter of 2026, according to data from the British Chambers of Commerce. But here's the twist. That difficulty is not because there's a shortage of applicants. It's because there's a mismatch between the skills employers want and the skills showing up in their applicant pool. So you end up with this strange paradox. Employers say they can't find the right people, while millions of capable candidates say they can't get hired. Both things are true at the same time, and understanding that gap is the first step to actually doing something about it. So why is this happening? A few forces are colliding all at once. First, wages, employer national insurance contributions, and overall compliance costs have all gone up. That means even a relatively junior, low-risk hire now feels expensive to a business owner. Second, consumer spending is subdued, so companies are cautious about expanding into capacity they might not actually need. Third, and this is the big one, hiring mistakes feel far more dangerous in a slow-growth economy than they did during boom years. When the economy is growing fast, employers hire for potential. They take a chance on someone promising and figure they'll grow into the role. When the economy is flat or cautious, employers hire for certainty. They want someone who can deliver immediately with minimal training and minimal risk. That single shift from hiring for potential to hiring for certainty explains a huge chunk of the rejections you're experiencing, even when your CV looks perfectly fine on paper. This is also why interviews feel tougher and slower than they used to. Hiring cycles have lengthened considerably, with many employers reporting that time to hire has increased by 10 to 20% or more. More people now need to sign off on a hiring decision. More financial scrutiny gets applied before an offer goes out. And during these longer, more drawn-out processes, roles sometimes get paused, frozen, or quietly canceled altogether, often for reasons that have nothing to do with you and everything to do with internal budget conversations you'll never see. If you've ever had a great interview, heard nothing for weeks, and then received a vague, generic rejection, this is very often what's actually happening behind the scenes. It feels personal from where you're sitting. From inside the company, it's frequently just a strategic decision, not a verdict on your ability. Now let's talk about something that's becoming a much bigger factor in 2026 specifically, application volume per role and how that's changing the maths of getting noticed. With hybrid and remote work now standard across huge swathes of the economy, employers are receiving applications from candidates across the entire country and often internationally for jobs that used to draw a small local pool. Some professional roles in the UK are now receiving an average of 250 to 300 applications, and the most competitive graduate schemes routinely blow past that number entirely. One widely cited example involved over 1,400 applications for a single visual designer role at a major company. Think about that for a second. A hiring manager who might once have chosen between 5 genuinely strong candidates is now sometimes wading through 30 or 40 equally strong people for the exact same job. Good candidates are losing out to other good candidates constantly, and that has nothing to do with your worth or your competence. So given all of that, let's get specific about where rejections are actually coming from, because there are really three separate filters you have to get through, and most people only think about one of them. The first filter is eligibility, and this is the one almost nobody talks about properly. Before a human or even a smart algorithm looks closely at your CV, most online applications make you answer a set of mandatory knockout questions. Things like, do you have the right to work in the UK? Do you hold a 2-to-1 degree or above? Are you available to start by a certain date? If you answer no to even one of these deal-breaker questions, you are automatically filtered out before anyone reads a single word of your CV. This isn't some mysterious AI judging your potential. It's a basic yes or no gate. So if you're getting instant rejections within minutes of applying, this is very often the actual cause, not your formatting, not your experience, just a box you ticked the wrong way, or a requirement you genuinely don't meet yet. The second filter is the technology myth that has caused enormous unnecessary anxiety. So let's clear this up properly. You've probably heard that applicant tracking systems automatically scan your CV, score it against secret criteria, and reject you instantly if you fall below some invisible threshold. According to data drawn from over 1.7 million job applications, this is largely a myth. Major platforms like Greenhouse, Workday, and Ashby, which together cover a huge share of the market, do not auto-reject candidates without a human being involved. An ATS is fundamentally a database. It stores your application, organizes it, and helps a recruiter search and filter through everyone who applied. It is not on its own making a yes or no decision about your future. What an ATS does do, though, is something equally important to understand, which is parsing. It takes your CV and tries to extract structured information out of it, your job titles, your dates, your skills, your education. And this is where formatting genuinely matters, just not in the dramatic, robotic rejection way people imagine. If your CV uses heavy multi-column layouts, decorative icons, text boxes, headers, or footers for your contact details, the system can fail to read that information correctly. Your phone number might never make it into the recruiter's database. Your most recent job title might get jumbled together with your dates. None of this means you were rejected by a robot. It means the recruiter might be looking at an incomplete or scrambled version of your actual experience, which makes it much easier for them to pass you over simply because the information that would have impressed them never reached them clearly in the first place. So here is the practical fix. Use a clean, single-column layout. Stick to standard, recognizable section headings like work experience, skills, and education, rather than something creative like my journey or where I've been, because non-standard headings confuse parsers and make your sections invisible to search. Avoid placing your contact details inside a header or footer, since many systems simply skip over those zones entirely. Use consistent date formatting throughout, ideally something like month-year, rather than mixing styles or using vague abbreviations. And unless an employer specifically requests a PDF, a Word document is generally the safer, more universally compatible choice. Now let's talk about the third filter, and honestly, this is the one with the biggest impact on whether you get an interview at all: relevance. Once your application is correctly read and makes it in front of a human recruiter, they are typically working through what's called a requisition view, essentially a master list of every single applicant for that one role. They sort people quickly into 3 rough buckets: qualified, not qualified, and maybe. Here's the brutal part. If 50 people are already sitting in the qualified pile and you're sitting in maybe, you will probably never hear back, even if you are genuinely capable of doing the job well. That's not a technology problem. That's pure competition, and it's why tailoring your application to each specific role matters more now than it ever has. And the data on tailoring is striking. Across that same dataset of over 1 million applications, tailored CVs converted to interviews at roughly double the rate of generic one-size-fits-all CVs. Specifically, about 1 in 17 tailored applications led to an interview, compared to roughly 1 in 33 for generic ones. That gap has nothing to do with gaming any algorithm. It comes down to relevance and specificity. A CV packed with concrete numbers, clear outcomes, and language that mirrors the actual job advert catches a recruiter's attention within the few seconds they typically spend scanning a document. A generic CV, even from a genuinely strong candidate, blends into the pile. There's another red flag worth knowing about if you're applying to larger companies. Your full application history at that employer is often visible to every recruiter there. If you apply to 15 different roles at the same company within a single week out of desperation, that pattern is visible, and it tends to read as scattered or unfocused rather than enthusiastic. Quality and targeting consistently beat raw volume. Let's also talk briefly about entry-level roles specifically, because if you're early in your career, the rules have genuinely shifted under your feet. The old, informal agreement between employers and beginners used to be simple. Your first job was where you learned how a workplace actually functions, and employers expected to spend time teaching you punctuality, communication, and basic tools. Mistakes were treated as part of the natural learning process. In 2026, that expectation has moved earlier. Businesses now expect a junior hire to start contributing relatively quickly, not perfectly, but fast enough that training doesn't visibly slow the team down. This is the real underlying reason so many graduates and young job seekers feel stuck despite working hard on their applications. It's not that entry-level jobs disappeared. It's that the definition of entry-level quietly shifted to demand more proof of readiness up front. The practical response to this is to build small amounts of real, demonstrable experience before you even apply, whether that's a personal project, a short placement, structured volunteering, or anything that lets a hiring manager picture you functioning competently from week one, rather than asking them to take that on faith. So let's bring this all together. If you are getting rejected in the UK job market right now, it is very rarely down to one single cause. It's usually some combination of a market that has genuinely tightened, a knockout question you didn't realize was eliminating you instantly, a CV whose formatting is quietly losing key details before a human ever sees them, and a lack of tailoring that leaves you sitting in the maybe pile while 50 other candidates sit comfortably unqualified. None of that means you are unemployable. It means there are specific, fixable points of friction between you and the next interview. And once you know where to look, you can actually address them instead of just sending out CV number 200 and hoping for a different result. If you want my honest advice moving forward, audit your CV for clean, simple formatting first. Then go back through your last 20 applications and ask yourself honestly, how many were genuinely tailored versus how many were copy-paste? Then check whether you're accidentally answering knockout questions in a way that's eliminating you before anyone even opens your CV. Fix those three things, and you will very likely see your response rate improve, even in a market this competitive. That's the real story behind why so many talented people in the UK are struggling to get hired in 2026, and more importantly, what's actually within your control to change. If this video helped you understand your own job search a little better, give it a like, and let me know in the comments which part hit closest to home, whether it was the ATS myth, the knockout questions, or the entry-level shift. And if you want more honest, practical breakdowns like this one, make sure you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss what's coming next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.